Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike, as always. We are at the end of the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy with Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. We start out with Chapter 6, which is called The Storm Clouds Part, and we end up starting this chapter in the Gaishu province at Lord Noriyuki's fortress, and we find out that Usagi, Lord Noriyuki, and Tomoe are at the fortress, and Lord Noriyuki is asking Usagi to stay and be a retainer for Noriyuki, and he'll be one of Noriyuki's most trusted retainers, just only second to Tomoe. So Tomoe will never leave the number one spot, apparently. Um, and he's asking him to stay and stuff like that. And, Usagi says, thanks, Lord Noriyuki, your offer is tempting, but I feel the samurai should serve only one master in his life, and my Lord Mifune is dead. And Tomoe really, I think, really definitely understands this aspect as being a retainer herself, or maybe she just doesn't want to get bumped off because Usagi is fucking amazing. I mean, Tomoe is really fucking amazing too, but Tomoe don't want to lose number one space. What did it say? If you're not first, you're last, and right now Tomoe is first, but maybe not for long. So, since Usagi doesn't want to take this particular position, uh, Lord Noriyuki offers and extends a friendship from the Gaishu clan, and Usagi is welcome there anytime. And Usagi is thanked and honored by this, and Noriyuki wants to know where exactly Genosuke is, the samurai who helped them out before. They asked for a maid to summon Genosuke, and it turns out that Gen is actually gone. He is nowhere to be found, and they're kind of shocked and in awe that Gen has left the premises. But Usagi tells them to no, wait, it's okay. I'm pretty sure Gen had his reasons for leaving in secrecy. Perhaps you should allow him to depart as he wishes. And Lord Noriyuki says that Gen is kind of a strange person indeed. He had wanted to offer him a position as a retainer, and they're all kind of puzzled. And Tomoe says that Gen was a very superb swordsman, and he's quite independent in his ethics, and stuff like that. He's a very rough around the edges type of person, I would say. And Lord Noriyuki tells Usagi that a farewell toast is in called for, I would say. And you see them toast to some sake, and then we get this nice couple of pages where Usagi is leaving, waving bye to Tomoe, going through the city, walking through the countryside. I love the way Stan Sakai just can have the art speak for itself sometimes, and you don't really need a lot of word bubbles. It's just nice to see Usagi traveling, and we get the whole. I would say it's now become a recurring gag because it happened. I want to say back in the Shogun's gift, maybe. I don't remember exactly what issue it happens, but Usagi steps on some rocks to get across a river, and he steps on a turtle and falls in, and that's where we meet Usagi's self-proclaimed best friend Genosuke, aka Gen. Gen is around, and he thought that maybe Lord Noriyuki perhaps made Usagi his general by now, and Usagi is very much taken back, and so is the turtle he stepped on. He was very taken back as well. Gen offers to lighten Usagi's load and asks him for a bite to eat because he's hungry. And Usagi says, "Why? What's the meaning of this? Why'd you leave? What's going on? You embarrassed me." And Gen's like, it's not my cup of tea, basically. I had my reasons for departing. He's like, "Oh, what do you mean?" Usagi says. He's like you, I'm content with my life of freedom, but I don't want to be tempted by Lord Noriyuki's offer of position. So I left before I could be it could be made. And face it, Usagi, we're no longer samurai, we're ronin through and through, and I do have to agree with that point. Gin starts to make fun of Usagi a little bit and kind of poke at him. He says, well, it doesn't hurt if I have a powerful lord in my debt, and perhaps I'll pass this way through again, and maybe I'll get to see Tomoe again. And Gen's Usagi's like, huh? What are you talking about? And Gen's like, oh, she's really something, isn't she? If only she weren't so formal. And Usagi says she's a good samurai and a good friend. And I like this scene where Gen picks up a group bouquet of flowers, and he's like, maybe I should replace my stump of a horn with this bouquet of flowers. Do you think it makes me look handsome? And Usagi says you could replace it with gold, and it still wouldn't improve your looks. And we get a little chuckle out of Gen, and he says, "You're basically just jealous, Usagi. Come on." As Gen and Usagi are walking down the road, Gen tells Usagi, "Anyway, I got some more pressing matters to attend to." As he throws the flowers he picked away, I haven't got a single coin to my name. Gen says, "I blew my chance to make a fortune with Lord Noriyuki, so I guess I'll continue to do what I know best is to go capture outlaws. There's an outlaw for 50 Rio bounty in the next province." And we get this running gag where Gen always asks Usagi for money, or who asks him to pay the bill, and he asks him for some coin, and Usagi gives him the coin. I wonder if it's kind of reluctantly, but he gives him the coin only because he did not claim the bounty on Zato-Ino's head, and that was decent of him to do so. And Gen says, "Yeah, Ino was shot while saving my miserable hide. The fool, I thought I owed him something." Gen says, because to them, or to Usagi, or no, I guess to Gen, Zato-Ino saved his life, so he didn't turn him in and take the bounty on his head. So they're kind of even. And as of what Usagi knows is that Zato-Ino is dead. You know, and Usagi says, that his body was never recovered, so I guess it was blown up in the fortress. In a way, Usagi is glad that he did die. Even if he were still alive in the Genchi province, Lord Noriyuki's protection. There would have been too many enemies, too many old scores to settle, and he could never truly live a quiet life. And Usagi says, "I hope he has finally found the peace he has sought." And Gen agrees. He's like, "Yeah, I feel the same way." And they're kind of like their paths are diverging as they're walking down the road. And, we'll see you again one day. Gen says to Usagi. And then I like this part where Usagi says that, I guess I'll run into you again too. I hope it's not soon, and Gen gets a good laugh. He's like, you're my best friend, aren't you? You know that, And Usagi's like, yeah, you keep telling me that. And he's like, I like this scene. It's a very heartfelt, like heartwarming scene. And Gen and Usagi leave each other, and Gen says, farewell, my friend. And Gen says, I remember that I said I owed Ino my life. Well, I really did settle my debts, though it will remain my secret. And we find out that he told everybody that Ino was shot, but he never actually said that Ino was dead. And everybody just assumed because Ino got shot, Ino would be dead. So Gen is keeping that secret as he walks away laughing. And then we go into chapter 7, which is the fate of the blind Swordspig. So we see a battered, beaten, bruised, barely hanging on for his life Zato-Ino. He is mumbling, "Come on, Spot. Life of peace. I hate them all. Together, my friend, find peace of safety." Cough, cough. And you see him, he's coughing up blood. He falls down next to a river, and Spot is trying to wake him up to no avail. And he is mumbling, muttering to himself. We see these two peasants, I would call them, and we see one is named Hachi, and one of them says, "Look, let's stop Hachi. Look, he needs our aid." And Spot is getting ready to attack him. He's like, "Easy, easy, my friend. Uh, Careful." One of them says, "It looks like a killer." And the young woman goes up to Zato-Ino. We find out her name is Fujiko. And Fujiko takes pity on Ino and brings him to her village. And we see them going through, and I don't know, I think they have vegetables on their carts. I'm not really sure, but Spot is behind them carrying Zato-Ino's sword stick thingy that he's got going on. Zatu keeps mumbling and grumbling, die long ears, oh, blah, 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 about stupid stench of a bounty hunter, miserable, blah, blah, blah. And Fujiko tells Spot that, "Look, there's our village down there. At last they've made it." And they're like, "Oh, look, Fujiko's back. Fujiko's back. Yay, they come to bring supplies." And we see that Zato-Ino finally wakes up. He has been asleep for a couple of days now. And we find out the woman, like I said, the woman's name is Fujiko, and Ino and Spot are at her house. And we found you dead 3 days ago, apparently, and brought you to the village. He's like, "The last thing I remember is the bounty hunter and getting shot. He couldn't remember anything else after that." And he's trying to remember. And I was going to say, for a blind Swordspig, Zato-Ino is very muscular, and we get to see him in his loincloth. It's a little weird, I gotta say. I think we've seen Usagi in his loincloth before too, but it's just, I don't know, it's kind of weird when they take their clothes off. I don't know why. It just was very unexpected to see him basically practically naked. But it's kind of funny in a way. But apparently Fujiko dug the pellet out of Zato-Ino and is basically going to help him recover. And we find out that they're in a hidden village that is self-sufficient, except occasionally when they have to trade for supplies with the outside world and stuff like that. And we see Zato-Ino is I don't want to say he hasn't eaten anything in several days, but he hasn't eaten anything in several days. And we see him scarf down the porridge. And as he's scarfing down the porridge, they're like, "Fujiko, they've come." And she's like, "What? It's too soon." And we find out that the bandits are attacking and kind of pillaging the town, going to take all their supplies that they've recently gathered. And Ino's like, "Stop, what's the meaning of this?" And we see one of the bad guys, the thieves, uh, the marauders, as we can call them. Uh, he is he kind of takes a liking, I guess, a liking to Ino, but like an interest in Ino. He hits him with his stick, tells him, "This will teach you to get into meddle in our affairs." And Fujiko gets in front, and he's like, "No, he's helpless and blind." And you get this weird, evil looking grimace on the guy's face. And who happens to show up is Spot. Spot jumps up in the air, starts biting him, and he ends up taking the guy's ear off, and while throwing Spot off to the side, and basically causes the thieves to run away in terror. And they're like, "Oh, we'll remember this." And we see Fujiko and Zato-Ino going back to Fujiko's house. Ino happens to ask Fujiko, "Why don't you notify the authorities, have them do something about it?" Fujiko says they're in such a remote village that the authorities won't do anything about it. we go to that evening, and Fujiko and Ino are up on a hill looking down on the valley where all the farmlands are for this particular town. And Fujiko is very surprised that Ino is healing as and recovering as quickly as he is. And we see them talking, and you can definitely sense that there's some kind of connection forming between Ino and Fujiko, because Fujiko happens to tell Ino that you're a remarkable fellow, Ino-san. And Ino says, I'm just a wanderer passing through. And we see this look on her face, Fujiko's face, and she's like, must you pass through, really, like, can't you, like, kind of stay? And then we go from there to the marauders, or the bad guys who showed up, and they're like, we get them good, we hit them good, like, oh, we got all this cool stuff, but the one main guy can't let bygones be bygones, and he's upset. He wants to get revenge for what happened to his ear. And I like in the scene, he's got like an X bandage on his ear, or what's left of his ear, which is really funny, which is like nothing. But the bandits end up showing back up, and Ino finds out, and he's like, I think I know why they're here, because the bandits actually do find out that what or who Zato-Ino is, and they go to collect his big bounty on his head. And I like this scene where it's Ino and Spot standing in front of the town with all the bad guys, and they're give up now, we will live in the life of luxury, well, if we bring in your head. And Eno's like, bah, my life is meaningless to me, but I owe these villagers a debt of gratitude. You can see that he's definitely standing up for them. And we get this cool scene where he ends up fighting the bandits, and it's a really cool scene where he takes them on, and Fujiko happens to rally the rest of the villagers, and they get in and fight, which is really cool to see all of them fighting, seeing how well Ino fights in this like commotion. And they're just fighting with all their tools and stuff like that. And then Spot jumps in and goes after the main bad guy who lost his ear earlier. And he ends up strangling Spot. Spot ends up basically suffocating. And they're all celebrating, like the villagers are all celebrating and whatnot. That they got the villagers away, and you see Fujiko holding Spot, and she's like, come quick, He's like, Spot, and it's just a very, very sad scene to see Ino holding Spot in his hands, dying or dead. And we find out that Ino, and during the evening, Ino ends up going to bury Spot. And he's like, you've been a good, loyal companion to me, but now I finally found peace, my friend. And we find out that Ino is basically staying in the village with Fujiko. So Ino finally gets his happy ending. He finally finds his peace for sure. This is just a very sad and somber scene, but I love how Stan Sakai works the colors in the colored version of this, with the pinks and purples of the sunset. It looks very, very well done. I think he had a colorist on this. I don't remember what the colorist's name was, but we get an epilogue weeks later at the White Heron Castle of the Genshu clan. We see Lord Noriyuki welcoming Lord Hebe, who is the snake guy who works with Lord Hikiji. He's basically there to congratulate Lord Noriyuki on stopping the civil war and avoiding the civil war, and stuff like that, And he's like, "Thank you, Lord Hebe. I was merely warned the Shogun of Lord Tomokuro's plot. And it's just very much like an epilogue, and there's definitely something going on where like Hebe is trying to lessen the fact that Lord Hikiji isn't like such a bad guy. He's trying to I feel like he's trying to convince Lord Noriyuki that he's not like Hikiji's not like a bad guy, and they happen to be like working for a common cause, and going further, possibly they can go work for a common cause. Um, and for once, they did work for the same cause in the end. And Lord Noriyuki points out that no, the Gaishu clan worked for the good of the country. Lord Hikiji for his own ends. And it ends, the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy ends with peace. Lord Hebe says, peace, Lord Noriyuki, has ended. But Lord Noriyuki says, I hope there are not bigger there's not a bigger one brewing in the distance, he says, like a bigger like conspiracy possibly, because we know that Lord Noriyuki and Lord Hikiji don't really they don't really agree with things like politically and stuff like that. Lord Hikiji is definitely like the big bad of the Usagi Yojimbo world in this sense. This I I'm curious to know why they broke this up into two chapters, chapters 6 and 7. I think they could have just been its own like one big, possibly double-sized issue. I don't really know if they should have broke this up. I was debating whether or not to make this one episode or two episodes, but I decided to just cram it all into one episode. This was a very satisfying yet sad ending to the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy. Um, One, I wasn't expecting Zato-Ino to live until I got to that last part. But to see Spot, the loyal companion, end up dying at the hands of a like just a lonely thief or bad guy was kind of sad to see. I know a lot of people don't seem to like this decision that Stan Sakai made, like killing off Spot, but it's definitely like gives weight and impact to the story, I would say. I like the beginning in chapter 6 where we get the downtime with Usagi and Genosuke and stuff like that. It's like very much um the ending, like the calm has as the storm has calmed, and uh it's very much the aftermath has happened. This is what we got. We got the aftermath basically in a big giant epilogue, I would say. Not just like the little tiny part that said epilogue, but I feel like this is the big epilogue to the story. And it was sad. It was sad but fun. Like I'm excited to see where Usagi and Gin go on their journeys separately and then coming back together. But seeing Spot die, but seeing Ino finally get what he wants, I can see why Stan Sakai took Zato-Ino off the table, because I don't know if there were too many more stories that Stan could either come up or tell with Zato-Ino. Because Zato-Ino, like it or not, was kind of a one note character. He just wanted to have peace and quiet. And he finally gets that at the end of this. It was totally unexpected, but it was very surprising to see that happen. I know he's off the table for quite a bit after this, and he does show up later on, but it's an interesting way to take such a prolific character in a sense off the table, because he had such an impact on the series as a whole, coming from like where we first met him until now, like on so many, on like Gin and Usagi. He had such an impact on these two people that he will be missed, I would say. And he is. I feel like technically he's probably the better swordsman out of everybody we've met so far in Usagi Yojimbo. From what I heard, Stan Sakai says he's like the best swordsman in like the universe of Usagi Yojimbo. But this was interesting to see. It was cool to see like the thought process in the back towards the end of the book with Stan Sakai, and how he says that this was his big like conspiracy, like spy thriller, almost very much reminiscent of the old James Bond movies and stuff like that. It was really cool to see that, and like how he thought like some people would turn into good guys and some people turn into bad guys and stuff like that. people would flip flop sides and stuff like that. We met some new characters like Chizu, who is we'll find out later she's name is Chizu, but Chizu is Shinji's sister. We meet, and then we met like Lord Tamakuro and Lord Torama we met, and stuff like that, and now we met Fujiko, who may or may not have a big part later on. But yeah, it was kind of sad. It was very much a bittersweet ending, I would have to say. But thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I enjoyed this big long story. It was very complicated to remember everything that I read, and I probably glossed over some points. But for the big story arc, the first big major story arc was freaking crazy. But I loved it. I loved it. I can't wait for the next big story arc to show up in Usagi Yojimbo. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. And remember to help the podcast, listen, share with your friends. Make sure to rate and review the podcast on whatever podcast platform you choose to listen to us on. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can do so at Usagi Podjimbo on Facebook, or Usagi Podjimbo on Instagram, or usagipod at gmail.com. You can do that right there, Thanks for listening, and we'll go read some Usagi Yojimbo. We'll see you on the next episode.